Greetings, iOS Nation. This is Georgia from Tippy.com. Welcome to our weekly podcast focused on everything iPad, from news, how-tos, to app and accessory reviews. This is iPad Live.
iPad Live is brought to you by the Tippy iPad Accessories Store, your one-stop shop for the latest in iPad cases, cables, chargers, headsets, and much, much more. Visit store.tippy.com for all your accessory needs. See you there.
It's Sunday, October 7th, 2011, and joining us tonight is co-host of Iterate TV and CIO of Nickelfish, damn it, Seth Clifford.
Hey, Georgia. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Had a pretty solid weekend, so I'm ready to wrap it up with some news and chatter.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have a great show of stuff to shatter today. Also joining us is my co-host on iPhone Live, Zen and Tech TV, and the managing editor of Tippy.com, Renee Ritchie.
How's it going, Georgia?
It is good. It's an exciting week.
It is. I'm having tech fail. As you know, I lost my iPad 2 to thieves and criminals, and now my iPhone had to be swapped out today. So I'm just hoping that whatever little tech I have left is enough to keep this show going.
Well, we're going to have to keep the show going because with all of the Apple news that's going to be hitting us really soon, we have to be on our toes.
Yes, on Georgia's toes.
And we had iPhone Live 172, the iPhone event preview.
We did. That was a good show because Apple actually the best comment I got was from, I'm going to misattribute this now. I forget who it was on Twitter. I apologize. But he wrote back saying, no, that's the iPhone Nano screen. Only room for 4 icons. And I thought that was brilliant.
And we'll be covering the iPhone event, right, Renee?
Absolutely. Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're gonna do our Meta Live blog. We're gonna give you the color, the commentary, the analysis, help you make sense of the iPhone universe.
And what about iPhone Live? When will it be?
We're going to do it on Tuesday because, Seth, are we going to wait an extra day before we talk about this event?
I don't think I'll be able to.
No fracking way. We're doing it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So join us not on a regular night, but Tuesday night so that we can talk about all the news scoops, what the phone's going to look like, and everything else and right after the event.
Georgia will be laughing or crying.
Aww. What the heck was that?
That was the Austin Powers Tiny Tears.
It sounded actually like a dying sheep.
Oh, that's definitely Austin Powers then.
You kill a lot of sheep, Georgia?
I was raised on a farm. We also had Super Functional 13 Q&A number 1.
Yeah, we took a bunch of questions for Jeff because people kept sending them in, and it's hard to make a whole show out of every one of them. So we took a couple of them. Some people, Mateus asked how to best carry your computer or your gear around with you and still maintain functionality, not letting it destroy part of your body. Michael Jen asked about, how functionality can help you recover from injuries better. So it was a really good show. In fact, it was such a big show we had to cut it in 2. So we did Q&A part 1 last week, and part 2 comes out this week.
We asked everyone, our Tippy Nation, what they are expecting from the Let's Talk iPhone event. So, Renee, I'm going to ask you, what do you expect?
What do I expect, or what did our Tippy Nation expect?
Okay, let's go first for the nation.
They expect us to, they expect everything. I don't know if Apple could actually reach the expectations that this blog-fueled public has gotten, because if this new iPhone isn't made of some vibranium, adamantium, unobtainium blend, makes them a cappuccino, and ensures that they don't need the company of a spouse ever again, people are going to be sorely disappointed.
Seth, has Apple spoiled us? Are we expecting way too much than they can produce now?
Well, no, I don't think so. But I think that if you're expecting a lot this time, you might not really be super pleased. I don't think we've been spoiled. I think that it's an interesting time in the market where, the phone's been out for so long and it's still doing extremely well and selling extremely well. And I think that while there's a lot of great phones out there, there's this phone can still hold its own after well over a year. So I don't think there's a whole lot of pressure to change it all that much. I think that obviously the kinds of changes that hopefully we'll see will they'll affect our use of the phone more than the phone itself, which, to be quite honest, is fine with me because I find that the more I use my iPhone and any device in general that I really enjoy, the more the device doesn't matter so much as what I'm actually doing with it.
Right. Now, what do you think, Renee, we're going to get for the iPad in iOS 5 kind of goodies?
See, that's an interesting question because originally we'd heard rumors that Apple was in fact going to try to rush the iPad 3 to market, that they were going to get a Retina display iPad or some other big upgrade to the iPad out in time for the fall event. But apparently that is not to be, or maybe it never was. So we just have the software to fall back on. And there's this rumor that the iPhone is going to get this wonderful assistant software. So I can basically have a conversation with my iPhone and say, do this, do that, and it'll talk back to me. And that apparently requires a dual-core processor, which the iPad has. But the other rumor is that it's going to take a gig of RAM for the iPhone to do this, and the iPad only has 512 megabytes. And it is not past Apple to not roll a feature into a device that they think is anything less than a stellar experience. So I think if we don't get Assistant on the iPad, I'll be mad.
Well, then what exactly are we going to get for the iPad that will, keep us happy till the iPad 3 comes around?
AirPlay mirroring, so Seth can fight angry zombies on his big screen TV.
Yeah, well, I kind of gave up on the whole Apple TV thing after we talked about it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah, I
okay.
did.
What about iCloud, Seth?
Well, I've spoken about how I anticipate using iCloud before. I think that it'll be interesting to see how developers leverage that huge amorphous backend to send data back and forth, maybe between devices, for sync purposes. In terms of like document storage and music stuff, I already have workflows well entrenched in my life, so I'm probably going to end up using iCloud a lot differently than most other people will, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how people use it. And, if I'm always looking for a better way to do things. So if iCloud provides a better way to do the things that I do, I'll entertain that.
Now, Renee, Apple has iCloud music storage and iTunes match agreements in place with the US record labels.
Yes.
And the rumor is that they might be trying to do an international release with other licenses. And so we went through them. It's like the UK, Germany, and France. Why do they hate Canadians so much?
Yeah, tout à l'heure, you Canadians are not getting iTunes match. It is not for you. Slag off. I said slag off. I don't know why they hate us. I mean, I'm glad those countries are, but it just illustrates, and we'll talk about this more with Amazon, but it just illustrates how broken licensing models are. We have an international internet, but an incredibly feudal system for managing media rights, and it doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon. So if Apple can get additional countries, I mean, they're still rolling the iTunes Music Store out in European countries. They added 4 or 5 more this week.
So we need
like
some
Holland.
sort of
Holland just got it.
We need some sort of Genghis Khan-like music person that's just going to go over and slash and burn everything so that we're under one uniform system.
You're going to make me say it, aren't you?
Go ahead.
To crush the media enemies, to see them driven before them, and to hear the lamentation of the dinosaurs that run them now.
Oh,
yes. That'd be so good. But yeah.
So if you're not in the US, Renee, for the iPad, what exactly are you probably gonna be expecting from iOS 5?
Well, you'll get everything in iCloud except you'll still be, the only thing that's missing is the iTunes Match, which lets you kind of like, it's Apple's version of the music locker business where you can take any song that you have on your hard drive and it'll match it on iTunes and let you re-download it to any of your iOS devices. And you won't be able to do re-download music of any kind. You can still re-download apps and iBooks, maybe the iBooks. But the other iCloud stuff, the backups, the restores, which I just used today. I had to swap out my iPhone, and I just hit the iCloud restore button, and it was exactly the way it was at 1:46 this afternoon, which was absolutely fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to just having the basics of iCloud being there, this invisible, almost like guardian angel for my data and my sync, well, not sync, I can't call it sync, Apple forbids me, my push and store in the cloud.
Now, Seth, it still won't allow me though to like store any of my own media files, like my videos or pictures. Like my 1,800 pictures.
iCloud won't?
Will I be able to?
Well, I don't know all right, so let's take a step back. It's been a while since I thought about it, but I know that Apple is giving everyone 5 gigs for free, and then they can opt to pay for more storage, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's for anything that you are able to store in iCloud, and right now we know that to be music and photos, definitely. I don't recall hearing something about video, though. Can you upload video as well?
It's kind of interesting. So
not video from your phone, though. I mean, like videos you have stored on your system. Obviously, I think you can upload stuff that you take with your camera.
Yeah, so it'll keep 30 days or 1,000 pictures. They didn't mention how much video it would keep. And I have run out of iCloud basic space, so I'm not sure exactly how much is free and how much you have to count from your 5 gigs. But there doesn't seem to be anything like Dropbox where you can just choose stuff to put up on iCloud. It has to be an app. It has to be in an app that is storing it there. And maybe iPhoto, you can drag stuff into an iCloud folder. I don't know yet. But Apple doesn't seem to have made it in any way, shape, or form a Dropbox competitor.
Yeah, Sonny Dixon in the chat is saying movies and TV shows can go into iCloud.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, he's a smart guy. He knows those things.
Yeah, I'm a little out of the loop on the whole thing because after it was announced, I kind of was paying attention for a little while, and then I just kind of wasn't. And I figured, they'll talk about it again. I'll just, listen then.
No, I mean, iCloud is nice for what it is, but I think that there might be some expectations that because people are used to using Dropbox and they're used to having a certain amount of control. They're used to having that file system, and Apple is absolutely abstracting away that file system.
Well, let's think about this for a second, though. People, meaning us, people like us are used to using Dropbox, and people like us are used to using and recognizing a file system. People that Apple is targeting with iCloud integration fully are the people that don't want to think about it, don't like to think about it, and would rather not have to.
Yeah, aka my mom.
Right.
So it's keeping the control away from us because we're too simple to use it.
Well, it's not that it's keeping the control away. It's that so for them, it's all about the overhead, the mental overhead of having to manage things that they don't think that you need to manage. Like I don't need to know Unix commands anymore to run a Mac, and my mom doesn't need to even know Aqua to use her Mac. She can just sit there and Launchpad if she wants to. And I think that's the great mainstream democratizer of iOS, is that you don't have to have a computer science degree or even have a lot of knowledge with computers. You can do things just by tapping and pressing. And that's what Apple wants to do with the file system. You open the Photos app, your photo stream is there. You open another app that supports it, it's just there. You don't have to know, oh, I stored this. Where did I store that document? Oh, where's this file? I forget. I put it in this hierarchy. Oh, frack, damn it, I can't get to it. I hate this thing.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll get my music too. Renee, could you talk to me about the Facebook for iPad? Because,
you know nothing about
Facebook, iPad.
No, you'll like this story, because this story is full of intrigue and conflict, and Steve Jobs doing the whooshy skadoosh finger thing to Mark Zuckerberg.
The what thing?
From Kung Fu Panda, where you grab the guy's pinky and you say skadoosh, and like the death touch explodes the entire local area.
I didn't really see Kung Fu Panda.
Dude, you have to see Kung Fu Panda.
It's funny, as a quick aside, you're like the third person this week that's been like, you haven't seen that? You really need to watch that movie, so I guess I have to watch it.
Yeah, you're a failure.
It's kind of cute. It's Kind of cute.
Yeah.
So basically, Facebook has not made an iPad app. Shame on them. They have not made an iPad app. And famously, Mark Zuckerberg said, the iPad is... Oh, sorry, he's got a squeaky little boy voice. The iPad is not a mobile device. So they weren't going to make it. But then finally, they turned the corner on that. They got a developer working on it. And then they didn't release it. And it turns out there was all this drama going on behind the scenes. First, Apple actually wanted to integrate Facebook into iOS back at iOS 4, the way they did Twitter in iOS 5, and they just couldn't come to an agreement because Apple is controlling and Facebook is arrogant, and these things go together like, I don't know, oil and water, or Verizon and anybody. And so it kind of got put on the back burner. And then Ping came out and it had Facebook integration. And Zuckerberg was really angry. So he put his tiny little foot down and took away API access. So Apple had to redo Ping. And they ended up integrating Twitter again. Twitter's always Twitter's like the rebound girlfriend for these social networking integration things. It's the girl they call when, the other girl dumps you in the middle of the night. And then again, they actually embedded the Facebook for iPad app in the iPhone app, and if you jailbroke, you could actually get it out, but they still didn't release it. And apparently Steve Jobs was so irked that he stormed Facebook headquarters. It was like Darkseid. The mother box opened up the boom tube, and Steve Jobs stepped out of it, hands clasped behind his back, omega beams bristling at his eyes. And Zuckerberg kind of assuaged him, tried to say, yes, it's coming. And then he found out that Facebook was actually playing Apple off of HP. They had promised Apple that they could have Facebook on tablets first, and they'd promised HP that the touchpad could have Facebook on tablets first. And Jobs, I will quote, when Jobs learned of the WebOS Facebook app during a summer visit to Facebook, he was livid. Zuckerberg vowed to get the app pulled, but John Rubinstein, the former CEO of Palm and then the GM of HP's WebOS division, refused to halt the release of the app. Facebook responded by restricting HP's access to its APIs, just as it had done with Apple's Ping a year earlier. So, I don't know if it's Young and the Restless or Bold and the Beautiful, but it is some kind of the tense and the useless going on in Silicon Valley.
I don't know how young it is.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty restless.
The old and the constipated.
Well, it's sad they shouldn't have banked on the touchpad.
Yeah, it didn't work out really well for them. I don't know. But it's interesting how Facebook apparently is all gung-ho, and they might even introduce the Facebook for iPad app at the Tuesday event, because they've decided that while Apple might be controlling, Google wants to destroy them just to watch them die and get their ad revenue to boot. So maybe, Google's enemy is Facebook's friend again.
Enemies make friends.
I mean,
you really think this is going to be a part of Tuesday?
I mean, that's if not Tuesday,
I don't actually.
When?
I don't
really
know.
I think that almost gives them more power. Facebook, really, I don't think that they're going to want to discuss or go there.
You think Steve will say, "You don't get to go on the stage with me. We will maybe acknowledge your existence on the App Store if we feel like it." Okay,
if Steve says anything during the event, I'll be happy.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
People, by the way, are still talking about Steve as if he's running the show, which is really, really interesting. When I was, looking at all the news, everyone's talking about Steve did this and Steve's going to do that. And on the stage, Steve's going to, I hope Steve does.
But on the separate track, they're also saying that because this is Tim Cook's first big event, that Apple's got to really impress, because he's not going to want to go up on the stage and have a 1-star should have been free kind of show.
Well, that's great. But in the end, Tim's still Tim. He's no Steve Jobs.
Well,
I'm sorry. He's going to send me hate email now.
Well, no, people know he's not Steve Jobs. He doesn't have a license name Steve Jobs. Doesn't get to live in Steve's house.
Which I'll publicize on the blog.
Yeah. You send that hate mail to chad.garrett@tippy.com.
No, send it to me. Tim, you can send it directly to me. I promise I will reply. Amazon Kindle Fire. Perhaps the next iPad killer? Could it be?
No, don't say that.
Oh, come on.
How could you say that?
Well, you know what? Offering something that is sleek, has a great ecosystem, and is selling it for $199.
Completely different device.
Yes.
Completely different purpose.
But in the end, when, kids want a tablet from their, from their parents for the holidays, parents are going to be like $500 for an iPad or $199 for a Kindle.
Oh, no. Parents would be like, what? This thing's going to let you buy how much stuff? Forget it. You're not getting either of those things. You're getting a piece of rock.
Listen, when Amazon rolled that out on stage, they talked about music, they talked about movies, they talked about books, they talked about everything that they push hard and sell. And apps were kind of like, yeah, it does apps too. On to the next thing. Like they touched on it, but it was by no means a focal point. And apps are the entire message with the iPad. The iPad is never part of the message when it comes to Apple. Apple says, here's this thing that we built. Look at all of these amazing ways you can enrich your life. And Amazon said, here's this thing that this company built a couple months ago, and then we did it again. So you might recognize it, and here's all the stuff you can buy and do on it. But it's not about enriching. It's about access. It's about getting at all of the commerce that that Amazon provides.
Can I paint you a picture?
And there's a really good reason for that as well. iSupply says that the cost in itself for creating a Kindle is about $209 to build, not counting the cost for manufacturing, tech research, and marketing. So that means that they're probably going to be losing about $50 on each sale of the Fire, and going to be hoping to make cash back by people buying lots and lots of stuff from Amazon. So they're selling it at a pretty huge loss.
The important thing to remember is that the Kindle Fire is not an iPad killer. It is not even a tablet. It is a giant pipe that sits in your lap that blasts Amazon content into your eyeballs.
Okay, well, you could say it like that, but it's a pretty sweet-looking, lightweight, half the weight of the iPad. It's also much smaller. There's phones out now that are almost the same size, but it does what it does really, really well. If you like to watch movies, listen to music every once in a while, get apps, and read books, it looks pretty nice, though they didn't let anyone actually touch it.
It looks like a playbook. It's actually a playbook body. It's a fork of the playbook running a fork of Android, delivering tons and tons of Amazon content.
And the playbook hardware,
like that.
The playbook hardware is really nice. If you've held it, it's a little small, but it's very comfortable. It feels very well made. So if this device is basically the same thing, but there's a bunch more content, that's going to be very compelling to a lot of people. And to people who already live in the Amazon ecosystem with all of that media, it's an easy way to get all that stuff just piped down right when you want it and where you want it. And the other thing too is that they've got a very compelling browser experience. They mentioned that there's an email client, and they have the Amazon App Store in place. So if people want to do other things with it, they can do other things with it, but that's not what Amazon is telling you to do with it. So they're giving you the ability to do it, but that's not their message.
Right. They don't make the same amount of cash.
No, they're definitely
in comparison to their own products.
Yeah, they have to sell content in order to afford to keep making this tablet.
Which, in contrast, Apple's iPad from iSupply again says that it costs them about $333 to make. Plus, with marketing and everything, they're making about $100 profit on each iPad. And they've sold, what was it, like 28 million of them?
They'll probably announce close to over maybe 30 million or more this week.
Yeah, like 29 million iPads. So they've already made a huge profit just by selling them. And then, they make a lot of money off of apps and everything else that you can buy.
But here's the thing. I'm gonna lay out my scenario here. I don't think this is an iPad killer. I don't even think this is iPad competition. I think this is the first other kind of tablet. People used to buy an iPad, and some people would buy an iPad and a Kindle the same way they'd buy an iPhone and an iPod Nano or Shuffle to go jogging with. It was like a purpose-built device that people used for a specific thing. And I think that because the price is so low and because it's a pipe to Amazon, this is going to make an entirely different, there'll be some overlap, of course, but an entirely different tablet market. And I think this is going to be the first one that actually grows the tablet market beyond Apple. I think this is going to make all tablets, well, not all, it's going to make the tablet market bigger and maybe at the expense of other Android tablets.
I think that it will be at the expense of the iPad. I think that most people don't buy more than one device of anything. Most people We are not the majority of most people, don't have more than one laptop, don't have more than one phone, and don't have more than one tablet. If they're going to buy the Kindle, they're probably not going to buy the iPad as well. So I think that it's going to be an either or device for most. There are some people that will say they have the iPad for themselves. They'll buy the Kindle for, a family member. That I can see happening. But I would assume that, it's going to be in the end a direct competition, though. Yes, it does not do as many things as the iPad does.
And there's another big difference. You, Georgia, cannot buy a Kindle Fire. You know why?
Tell me.
You're a filthy Canadian, and the Kindle Fire is US only, and almost all of Amazon's content is US only. And if you followed Apple's earnings, which I know you have, how much money are they making internationally now? $1 quadrillion.
A lot of money. Yeah, no, the Kindle won't be able to do the same amount of things that the iPad has. It does not have a camera, it does not have a mic. So you're not going to be able to talk into it, use it for Skype calls, use it for, video conferencing. Those kind of things are going to be left out of the Kindle. But it is small, it is lightweight, and really, really cheap.
Yeah.
And as the touchpad has shown, people like cheap.
Would you say that's the killer feature? Because I would, the price tag.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely. And this might maybe push Apple into putting the iPad, the older iPad, as a cheaper version.
Yeah, I can see that, because people kept saying that Apple might drop the price of the iPad to compete, but those people never paid attention to Apple not dropping the price of Macs to compete with netbooks. Apple doesn't do that, but I can easily see, when the iPad 3 comes out, the iPad 2 sticking around at $100 cheaper.
Yeah, and still people, again, if, there's still, it'll be $100 cheaper. It's still $400. So
yeah, but it's much. I mean, if you put a 7-inch Amazon device next to a 10-inch Apple device, $100, you'll mentally justify that by the size, because we're used to paying more for bigger screen TVs and bigger screen laptops. We have this sort of mental model that size equals money in some way.
Right, and it only stores 8 gigs.
Yeah, but it gives you a lot of Amazon cloud access.
Right.
Are you going to try one, Steph?
My photos alone.
You can't put those on there.
Yeah.
No, I can't take them.
I'm interested. I'm definitely interested. If I can get my hands on one, I will. I don't know if I'll buy it myself or if I'll somehow justify it. Like, we should have this in the office for research purposes.
To see if our Android apps work on it.
Yeah. No, I want to play with one, definitely. I'm very intrigued.
The other thing to remember, and I mentioned Phil Nickinson was kind enough to have me on the Android Central podcast last Thursday, is that this is a very different kind of Android. Amazon almost did not mention Android at all. I believe they only mentioned it when it came to the Amazon Android App Store. They are treating this as an Amazon device, not an Android device. And if there is one company in the world that still makes Apple look like an open, glowy, hippie commune, it is Amazon. Anyone who has ever dealt with them as an author, writer, or in any way, shape, or form, even developers of apps for Android, knows that they are dictatorial to a Stalinistic degree. The trains at Amazon run on time, and that's going to be interesting for people who are used to the crunchy granola Android to see just how not this is.
That said, I can't wait for somebody to root it.
You mean Jerry Hildenbrand?
Let's see what they can do with this baby.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, you're right. You're right, though. I mean, this is by no means an Android tablet. It is an Amazon tablet experience that happens to be the underpinnings of which are based on the Android kernel, and that's where it stops.
Yeah. Until it gets rooted.
Right.
But I'm happy there's competition, because before this, I think Apple, they actually made fun of Honeycomb tablets at the last Apple event. They put up like the number of apps on a Honeycomb tablet, like 7 or something. And I think this is the first one that Apple has to take seriously. And whether they choose to do anything obvious about it or whether it just factors into their roadmap, I'm really happy that there are alternatives on the market, and serious ones, so that Apple doesn't lose any momentum.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been waiting for somebody to give them a run, and I think if anybody can do it, it's Amazon. They've got the scale to do it.
Well, let's talk about Strange Bedfellows. We've been enjoying the war that Samsung and Apple have. And I hear that there might be a deal in place, Renee.
This is so weird.
They might be making nice, really?
Can you guys explain this to me? Because I was reading this earlier, and I just could not get to the bottom of it.
It was, with apologies to Sonny in the chat. It was written in Australian, so we'll have to do a slight bit of translation. So the idea here is that, and I apologize to Phil for altering his graphic. He had the little Lloyd, and I love Lloyd with the Microsoft, and I had to drop the Apple on him. So I apologize, Phil, but that's how it is. So what happened was Samsung entered into a licensing agreement with Microsoft. And this is interesting because Google bought Motorola to try to quote unquote defend Android developers against patent charges. And this, obviously did not satisfy Samsung because they went ahead and they're going to pay Microsoft, we don't know, maybe 10 or 15 bucks per handset. So once again, Microsoft will make more money off of Android than Google does. And this report comes from the court case going on in Australia, where Samsung has apparently made an offer to Apple to try to smooth things over. And we don't know whether they're going to... Because here's the thing, and I'm going to back up for a minute. Microsoft's goal is to make Android more expensive. They do not like that Google can give away Android for free when they're charging 15 bucks for Windows Phone. It makes an unlevel playing field. And they believe, wrongly or rightly, that Google is giving this away free by infringing on other people's patents, and that if Google actually paid for these patents, the price would be the same. So they're forcing the manufacturers to pay for the patents, thereby, in their eyes, leveling the playing field. Apple doesn't care because they don't sell an operating system, so they don't care how cheap or expensive Android is. They want, instead of wanting to make Android more expensive, they want to make it less usable because they believe that Google is trampling on Apple's multi-touch and other patents, and they want Samsung and others to take those things out so that Android is not as easy to use, and that's how they'll compete. And we don't know if Samsung is agreeing to take anything out, agreeing to change the design so it looks less like Apple, but they've obviously offered something that Apple Legal is looking at.
Okay.
Did that make more sense or less?
So no, not really. So what exactly will Apple gain from this? Like, why is Apple happy with this?
I don't know if they're happy because they haven't answered yet, but the whole crux of the thing is
their attorney kind of said that there'd be some benefit. I want to know what this benefit would be, and is it just for Apple or,
They said they'd be comforted by such a deal. So how do you want to read that?
Nice warm blanket.
Yeah.
A nice pair of slippers.
Nice teddy bear.
Some snugglies. Flannel pajamas. Apple wants Samsung to stop making their stuff look like Apple stuff. And we saw that infographic that had, people keep saying that Apple's being unreasonable about this. And to some degree, maybe it's petty, but you look at, the power adapter looks the same. That's fine. Okay, one thing you can excuse. They have a dock cable. They made their sync cable look like a dock cable. Just when you start adding up everything that Samsung did to look kind of like Apple, it does become kind of, probably annoying from Apple's front. And their resolution is probably for Samsung to be more like HTC or more like Motorola and make their stuff just look different.
Okay, fair enough. So, is there any other news that we're going to find out from the Let's Talk event that might benefit iPad users?
What do you want, Georgia? What about your iPad irks you? What would you like Apple to fix?
Well, I would like to have the assistant, first of all. I would like to be able to not have to find my iPad and have a trigger word to make it start up. And I'd like it to be able to run all of my AirPlay things with just being able to speak to it.
Oh, that'd be cool. Sitting on your sofa, iPad, play TV, stream video, community. Oh, that Ovid.
Yeah, I don't want to have to get out from the couch while I'm, eating bonbons and sitting on the couch. I want to be able to sit there. I want my iPad to be around and I can just speak to it and it turns on its own. Will change my channels, play whatever music I so want, change the volume. And
while your husband, uses a big leaf to fan you and peels your bonbons for you.
That sounds good.
Sonny in the chat room is saying that we're getting that. If Assistant works on the iPad too, I'm not going to expect it because
Assistant might work, but I don't even want to have to turn on the iPad. I want some sort of a code word that it'll turn on for me because I hate getting up and trying to find out where it is.
You'll never. I remember we went over that. You'll never get that because the battery technology can't support a device being always on and listening yet. It would just run down your battery really fast.
No, I would have it hooked up. Of course, you keep it plugged in because you don't need to move it.
Maybe. And then when it detects the plug, it keeps the microphone listening for your command word.
You just choose to turn it on or turn it off. If you turn it on and it drains, well, that's your fault. You should have turned it off.
No, see, Apple doesn't believe that we're competent enough to do that. They'd have to use like some sort of German, those German attack dog things. Like you'll yell out "Scheiße!" and then the iPad will turn on, and then you can say like "Instigate command, show TV."
Okay, well, they could always put something in that it would turn off automatically at say 30% battery power.
I don't think they'll do that.
My iPad is almost always drained anyways, so.
Yeah, Sonny's saying that developers will figure out how to listen to you then.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah, because if your iPad's always on listening, then who knows who's listening. There was that story today about HTC, how they have this thing where that you agree to let HTC check your data for usage or whatever, and they didn't properly protect it. So people have been making apps that kind of take all your data. And, you never know if that's possible on another device.
That kind of stuff is really creepy to me. Yeah, you just kind of ruined my great dream of having the assistant be able to.
It's like a baby monitor, but for real people.
And again, they can do that with our phones anyways, so.
Only on that People of Interest show. I don't know if that's real yet.
No, it's real.
Seth,
I've actually seen videos of it.
Can I listen to your phone?
Can you hack into people's phones and listen to what they're plotting, like those guys on TV?
Renee, I'm not going to share that with you because that would really...
that's your pick of the week. You're not going to spoil it.
It might strain our relationship.
Oh, nice.
Right, they have to put it on the phone, but I hear that they can. So
why don't we? This is a good idea. Let's get some. Let's put our cards on the table. Let's make some official predictions for what we're going to see on Tuesday. Let's put it all on the line. Let's be held accountable. Starting with Georgia.
Man, no. We'll start
George
with
is
Seth.
accountable first.
Seth wants to go first.
All right, I'll go first. I've reset my expectations. I'm expecting a phone very similar in appearance to what we're holding in our hands, with fancy guts and a lot of software stuff. Both the assistant. I don't think that's all we're going to see. I think they're probably going to bring some developers out and show some of the stuff that iOS 5 is doing. I think that they're probably going to try to get a lot of momentum going, since if they're not going to have new hardware with software. So they're going to show some really cool groundbreaking apps that, might be capitalizing on new APIs that are in iOS 5 and kind of get everybody fired up about that. And I think software is going to be the star of the show. I think there's going to be a juiced up phone like we have now. I would love to see a new phone, but I don't really need one. And the closer we get, the more I kind of feel like I don't really care. I just want to see some new stuff regardless.
Is that it, Seth? Like I can write down all of that and hold you to it?
Sure, why not? Yeah, sure.
It was opaque enough that you'll be able to weasel out of it anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. You know what? I'm a big enough person that I can admit when I've been wrong. So if I'm completely blindsided and Georgia gets to point and laugh at both of us, then that's fine. I'll accept that ridicule happily.
Who's next, Georgia?
Go ahead, Renee.
Oh, I'm next. All right, so I predict that we will have Tim Cook and no Steve Jobs. He will come out and give us some numbers, some updates on the Apple business, as he is wont to do. And then the show will be handed over to the usual suspects of Scott Forstall, Phil Schiller, maybe Eddie Q, and they will talk about iCloud. They'll do a regurgitation of what we saw at WWDC, along with introducing the big new features like Assistant, dictation to a lesser degree. But I think really Apple has said often that it's software that's a differentiator. Steve Jobs was very fond of quoting Alan Kay, who said that people who want to make great software also make their hardware. And I think that's going to be really true. They're going to put their money where their mouth is with this, and they're going to have an iPhone 4S that looks like an iPhone, like a Verizon iPhone 4, with the A5 processor, maybe more RAM. Very few other changes. 8 megapixel camera, hopefully a FaceTime HD camera. But iOS 5 will be the star of the show, and Assistant will be the star because that is going to make for a fantastic demo. Outside chance that Scott Forstall or Tim Cook calls Steve Jobs on the phone with Assistant, but we'll see about that. We'll get an iPod Touch. Rumor is it won't be an A5 chip in the iPod Touch, but I think that Apple's always, had the same processor, if not a slightly faster version in the Touch. So along with a white iPod Touch, I hope we get A5 in the iPod Touch this year. I think iPods are going to be diminished. Maybe some of them will be canceled. Maybe the iPod Classic is not long for this world. 64 gigabyte iPhone, I'm not sure about, but if they do start buying those chips, those are expensive chips, so they'll buy them in volume. So maybe 128 gigabyte iPod Touch, and that would really put the nail in the Classic's coffin. And I think that is going to be it. It'll be an iCloud Assistant event. I don't know if iPad, sadly, will get any mention, except hopefully they will show Assistant running on the iPad too. Maybe AirPlay mirroring and some other stuff like that. So I will be pleasantly surprised if there is an iPhone 5, but I am not expecting it. I think it was very telling earlier this year when Apple said it's the year of the iPad 2, not anything else.
Do you really think we're going to hear about a bunch of iPod stuff at an event called Let's Talk iPhone, though?
I think it'll be a bullet point. One more thing, here's a new iPod Touch. And then quietly the iPod Classic will be dumped from the menu.
All right.
Over to you, Georgia.
Okay, well, I'm going to say what I would like to see because most of the rumors do say that it's going to be a 4S. But let's go out on a limb. Let's say that Apple really wants to, Apple is not thrilled with bloggers. We're always coming out with the phones beforehand. So let's say they stuck the iPhone 5 into an iPhone 4 casing. And it will be an iPhone that has a larger screen, looks a little bit different, and maybe a metal back. And I think that if they really give what people want, they'll have Steve at some point come out because people will go crazy. We want to see him. We want to say goodbye. We want to have his moment. And since he had so much to do with this set of product line, it would be nice for him to come out for the fans. Of course, health being something. If he does look exceptionally sick, they probably won't have him come out just because the company is worth more than Steve himself is. So I think that he'd make sure to protect the company because, he sneezes and their stock price.
Could it be like Hulk Hogan where he comes running out at the end of the event to his theme song and the crowd goes wild and he makes the last minute save, drops the elbow on Eric Schmidt or something and then runs back to the...
Well, it would be great if he did the one more thing when no one was expecting it and came out and gave us a second. Like that would be enough. The crowd would go wild. And I think Steve really does love to play to the crowd, and that's his strong point. So it would be fabulous. And
I had nothing else to do. It's not like I'm employed anymore, so I figured I'd come on over and talk to you guys.
He's still employed.
Yeah.
It would be cool. I was just thinking about this. FaceTime over 3G, calling Steve, and Steve kind of cheekily says, "How's it going over there? You doing all right?" Something like that. That'd be awesome.
And then he comes out from behind the stage.
I could see that happening.
I wasn't even going to go that far.
I don't know if the cell networks are up to doing FaceTime over 3G reliably for an Apple event.
Oof.
Turn off your MiFis. You're ruining my demo. HSPA plus. That's. I mean, if it's HSPA plus and they can get some good 21 megabit per second, dare we hope for 42 megabit per second? Dare we?
I'm still bummed out over the phones. So.
All right.
Yeah, that might be a deal breaker for me. Siri would have to be something absolutely amazing for.
Is there an off? There won't be an iPad 3, but is there an off chance for Apple has never bumped an iOS device. They've done slight modifications. They've sometimes increased storage during the lifespan of the same iPhone. In the early days, I think they went from 4 and 8 to 8 and 16 or something like that. Is there an off chance the iPad could get a stealth bump? I mean, could it get some more RAM? Could it get some more storage? Could it get anything that would make it better, just as an asterisk, the way a MacBook gets it sometimes?
In the iPad?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I just don't think that it's going to happen. if they spent time and effort and money on working on the iPad right now and they didn't give me a new phone, it would just make me more upset.
I kind of feel like it's easy for them to bump the laptops and stuff because they're not they're not as singular a device. You know, like there's the MacBook
Yeah.
Air, but you have two sizes and then there's like two configurations for each one and you can kind of mix and match stuff and the iPad is the iPad. So I kind of feel like for them to do the kinds of bumps that they do on the laptops and you know, desktops and stuff, I don't know that they can pull that off because it's a different kind of purchase for people, I think.
Right. Well, you know what the interesting part is that they could leave it being the same iPhone, and I know this is not an iPhone event, but and have a metal back, make it thinner. I don't know.
You're gonna hold on to that hope. You're like it's like
I
you're
will.
swinging over the canyon on the last little bit of the tattered rope bridge that broke, crumbled beneath your feet, and you're just holding on to it.
I've waited a really long time.
I know. I feel
So
bad for you.
I think that yeah, I know you do.
No, like I said, last week I expected the same thing as you. I thought we were getting an iPhone 5 with a bigger screen, tapered design, metal back, and then I had my expectations readjusted. It was painful, like going to a really clumsy chiropractor. But after I
Yes.
could walk again, I kind of settled myself. And now I will be pleasantly surprised instead of horribly disappointed. But I think a large amount of people on the internet are going to be horribly disappointed with this event. I think they've set themselves up to expect a radically new device. And just like the iPhone 3GS, I think Apple's going to wait a generation between changing.
It's a generation and a touch though, and that's what angers me. That's
Why
it.
did Apple wait so long for just a 4S? The consistent story we've heard is Verizon, that because they did the Verizon deal in February, they were not going to replace the iPhone that quickly. I also think that it gave them the extra time to make iOS 5. Because iOS 5, when I started writing down the changes, there's a huge amount of changes, the most amount of changes that I can remember. And you add to that iCloud, which they do not want to be a mobile me experience. They want this thing to soar on day one. And you add in stuff like Assistant and the nuance back dictation. And that's a lot of work. So I think a lot of stuff came together. And I also think the iPod has dwindled so much that it can't anchor a fall event anymore. And this way they get the iPhone in fall and the iPad in spring, and it kind of balances out their product cycle.
Okay, well, on to less depressing news. We have the
Oh, don't
top
be
five.
depressed, Georgia. Don't be depressed. iOS 5 is going to make your iPad like a whole new device.
Yeah. Okay.
No, seriously, I went back to iOS 4 briefly, and I could not believe it. It was like I kept trying to do things that I couldn't do anymore. I've gotten so used to the notifications. Notifications on iPad are really nice because they don't take up the whole screen. They slide down, they slide back up. The AirPlay. There's so many nice things about iOS 5 for an iPad that I think any iPad user is gonna like. It's gonna be like Christmas morning when iOS 5. And we didn't answer that yet. When is iOS 5 gonna come out? I think the Gold Master will come out on the day of the event,
Mm-hmm.
and usually they used to put out the new operating system the same day as the new phone, but for the last few years they've done it a couple days earlier to kind of ease their server load. But if they try to rush out the new phone, then I could see, either the 7th maybe on the earliest. I don't think that's long enough. Seth and I had an argument about this on Twitter, or the 14th, which gives them almost 2 weeks to test the GM.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they've been sitting on beta 7 for so long, and this will be redundant for anybody who actually was watching us talk about it. I feel like beta 7's been in the pipe for so long that they're fairly confident that if they release a GM on Tuesday, they can probably say, yeah, this is essentially beta 7, what we have here, so you know what? We're going to drop the software on Friday. That said, sometimes things happen in the GMs that are completely different from the last beta. That people have seen that too, where there were like crazy little bugs, and I'm still seeing a bug or two in beta 7 that are just, inexplicably annoying and not even consistent. It's once in a while they happen, which is the more annoying part. So it's entirely possible that they're going to take the extra week to do it too. I mean, I don't know. I'd love to see everything drop this Friday. I would love it.
But I don't know if you remember, George, but the zero releases like 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 have not been very solid. I mean, Apple has a history of the .0 releases needing to get bug fixes fairly quickly.
Yeah, I'll figure 2 weeks. 2 weeks seems like a short enough amount of time that people won't go antsy for it, and I'll already be so depressed over the phone that it doesn't matter. And yeah, I'll probably be getting the glowing back mod.
Now, yeah. Okay, we'll talk to that in a second. But on October 14th, which is the early, Tippy originally heard that it was going to be an October 14th release. And then we heard that things were going so well, they were going to move it up to October 7th. But it kind of feels like it's gone back to October 14th. And on that day, myself, Seth Clifford, Georgia, David Barnard, John Gruber, Daniel Jaikut, Craig Hockenberry, and a bunch of other luminaries are all going to be at the Singleton Conference in Montreal on that Friday. So we could potentially have the greatest iPhone lineup in the history of lineups.
Yeah, and also none of those people will be able to get the phone if it's released that day. There'll be like a power vacuum in iPhone land.
Well, they could buy an unlocked Canadiana version. $750.
Yeah.
$700 to spare.
Yeah.
On par, though.
You know what would be fun, Seth? Come on, lining up in Canada for an iPhone.
I probably wouldn't have to do much to twist Justin's arm.
Nice.
Let me just say that. If you said let's do this, he would probably be like, yes, totally, let's do this.
I'm getting some Tim Hortons and lining up. Yeah.
We did it last year. It was a very interesting experience.
So, Georgia, are you going to go on the record now and say, I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you on iPhone Live this Tuesday whether you're going to buy the new, after you've seen it, whether you're going to buy the new phone or not. I'm going to ask both you and Seth, because I have to get it, because I have to review it. I have an easy out for this answer. But we're going to see if you and Seth, whether Apple does enough to make you and Seth want it.
No, we have to build for it. I don't have a choice either.
Nice.
We have to support it.
It's just Georgia. If Apple makes it say tea, Earl Grey, hot, I'm saying she gets it.
Yeah. If the assistant really rocks, I would want it.
Georgia, it's time to wake up. No, 10 more minutes, assistant, please. All right, resetting alarm for 10 more minutes, you lazy bee.
Yeah, that might do it for me. But again, I really have been looking for. And I think most people have. They want something that looks different. I think the case makers want something that looks different, so we buy more cases, buy more tech.
Well, but this will have a bigger camera, so you'll have to buy a new case.
Part use and part, my little, trinket. So
it's just so depressing. It's such a depressing show. I'm gonna call this show The Great Depression.
Yes,
It's a real bummer. Thanks, Georgia.
I know. Your frown is infectious.
I'm sorry. Well, let's we went off the air, but let's head down to Let's head down to the top 5 RRS news feeds readers for iPhone and iPad. Seth, do you want to head this one up?
The top 5.
I'm too sad to talk. Really.
You're too sad to talk? All right, let's go.
Really?
Let's go through this post. All right, so there's a post up. It says top 5 RSS news readers for iPhone and iPad. Want me to just blast through this?
Yeah, go for it.
Are these actually in order of popularity?
No, they're 5 presented without any editorial on which order they should be in.
Okay, I didn't know if there was a poll or something. All right, so 5 RSS readers. We've got NetNewsWire for iPhone and iPad, which is a long-standing favorite among many Mac users. It's been around for a very long time.
I always found it kind of slow.
I just wasn't crazy about the interface, to be quite honest. So I just never really got into it.
But the nerds love it.
Yeah, it's hugely popular. And the people that have been using it for a really long time, I think still are using it because they're really entrenched in that kind of app world, I guess. I don't know. We've got the early edition for iPad, which basically takes your RSS feeds and renders it in a newspaper style, which is kind of cool if you like that. I like reading lists. I like blasting through lists and kind of skimming and looking for keywords that I'm interested in. But if you want to sit back and take a little better look at the news, that's one you might want to check out, early edition.
If you have wine or coffee or whiskey, this is a nice one to put your feet up to and look at.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a lean back and take your time RSS experience. We have Reader for iPhone and iPad, which is my personal favorite. That is a gorgeous, gorgeous app that is very fast and has all kinds of built-in functionality inside it and continues to be developed and add little features here and there. Very cool. We have Flipboard, which is another great one, which also kind of takes a page from the, no pun intended, newspaper motif. Yeah, no, really, I just said it before I even thought how stupid that sounded. But Flipboard is cool because you can integrate all kinds of other things as well as your RSS. There's social network integration. There's you can just kind of add sites to it. You can pump in different kinds of feeds. It's very cool. If you want something that's a little bit more than RSS, check Flipboard out. And then last but not least is Pulse. Pulse is a very different kind of app because it kind of presents your news in a much more visual way. So it has kind of much more image-centric, image-focused stuff. And it parses your feeds for news that it thinks you might find interesting and shows you big chunky pictures. And then you can kind of drill down from there, and it has all kinds of sharing, integration, and social stuff built into it too.
What I was surprised about, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but none of these, except for the free one, there are free versions here, so it doesn't really matter. But most of these are not universal binaries. If you want to buy one or download one, you have to do it separately for iPad and for iPhone. And I'm sure for people who have like a BlackBerry and an iPad or an Android and an iPad, that's not a big deal. But it was just interesting to me that they almost all chose to go that route.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. I guess I don't know. I think the people that develop these probably feel that these are kind of best in class apps, and this is probably in a lot of cases their livelihood. So if you're going to spend the time to develop an app that you're proud of and you want to separate it that way and give people the choice to have two very different experiences, then I guess you can sell them differently. I'm a huge fan of universal apps just because it's one app that I download and I don't have two little icons in my iTunes and whatever. It's simpler and just mentally makes sense to me. But it's an interesting model to split them out like that. But you're right. I think if people have different devices, then they kind of feel like they aren't wasting money, I guess. I don't know. I guess if you have a $10 universal app and then two $5, apps like an iPhone and an iPad, maybe people feel better emotionally about just spending
And
the
then it's
$5.
more complexity for the dev, right? Because you got to maintain different code bases.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're maintaining different interfaces anyway. It's just a matter of, I guess, two different workflows, two different projects and thought processes and feedback mechanisms when people ask for bug fixes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a choice, and some devs go down that road.
Yep.
Okay, well, we also have the picks of the week for October 1st, 2011. And what exactly were they, Renee?
Seth Clifford, who is a heck of a guy, you guys might be familiar with him. He picked Easy Calendar because the iOS calendar just was not getting things done fast enough for him. So he likes him some Easy Calendar. Chris Oldroyd likes FIFA 12. He's British, so soccer, football for him. It's the height of the season, and he likes to play that game. Ali Flowers picked Almu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a capital A, capital L, Mu, M-U. And this is a iPod music as an alarm, so you can wake up to your tunes and not Apple's, default sonar ringtone. Chris Vitex, Gigabyte, picked Where's My Water, which is a fun little game. And I picked Global Video, CTV Video, and City Video because I cut my cable cord. I ditched the black box. I am online video only, and this lets me watch a ton of shows. I listed them all out there, but there is almost every major network show available through one of those three apps. And if you're in America, you can get an NBC and an ABC app, but I noticed conspicuously missing were a proper CBS and Fox apps. I don't know what's up with that.
What did I pick, Renee?
Nothing like usual. Oh, Leanna picked Sign My Pad, by the way, because she wants to be able to put her Leanna Lofty signature on things online. What have you been using this week, George? Anything? What are you playing on your iPad?
I haven't had time really to play anything and or even pick up the iPad. The last game that I chose to play on the iPad, which I was really enjoying, was Antrim Escape HD, which I enjoyed, and Sentinel 3. Though Sentinel 3 has some sort of bug on the iPad and it doesn't let your healed droids heal something. If you know how to do that, email me, please.
If you can heal George's droids, email her.
So that's pretty much the last two games that I actually played on the iPad. But again, yeah, it's just work, no play.
Nice.
Well, I think that we have another iPad Live under our belts.
That's what that is.
Or are you just happy? Seth, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And how can we find out more about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Seth Clifford. You can find me on the Tippy Shows, iPad Live and iPhone Live. You can find me on Iterate with Renee and Mark Edwards of Bajango. And if you'd like to check out our site, check out some of the apps and sites that we've built, visit nfidm.com. We're Nickelfish.
Damn it.
Yeah, and I got to say this too. I'm actually very excited because we're putting the final touches on our redesign, and we're going to be relaunching right before we come up there.
Nice. You read the website, you mean?
Yeah, it's kind of, Justin always says, you know how the shoemaker's children have no shoes, that kind of old adage? It's like that. We've been working on this for 15 months, and we're finally finishing it because we're always doing other stuff for people.
Seth's getting shoes.
I'm getting finally shoes.
5-finger Vibrams.
Shoes are important.
It's very exciting. It's been kind of a very slow labor of love, so I'm really excited to unveil it.
And you'll toot that out when it's live?
I will toot it all over the place.
Nice.
Wonderful. And thank you, Renee, for joining us. Depressing me, but joining us.
Oh, look, your expectations are not Apple's obligations. I learned that from someone really smart.
Isn't it really, though? If they want my money, right?
They're going to get your money. They are very smart at getting your money. They long ago figured out how to separate people from their money by the use of shiny, shiny boxes.
You're probably right, unfortunately. How do we find out more about you, Renee?
You can find me at Renee Ritchie on Twitter, plus Renee Ritchie on the Googles. You can also find me at tippy.com and Zen and Tech TV. I am with you and Seth on the iPhone and iPad live show, with you on Zen and Tech, with Jeff Gluckman on Super Functional, and with Mark and Seth on Iterate, and Mobile Nations with all the editors from the Mobile Nations series of sites. That's all. No big whoop.
No big whoop. And I'm Georgia, and you can find me on Twitter at GeorgiaTIPB. Send a hello, and on the website www.tippy.com. And of course, you can stick around for Zen and Tech following right after this. You can reach all of us at Tippy via email at podcast@tippy.com. Leave a comment, and the show goes up on the blog. We're here every Sunday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and 2 a.m. British Summertime. And of course, our companion show, Renee?
iPhone Live, typically Wednesdays, same bat time, same bat channel, but once again,
we're doing Tuesday?
We're doing a special Tuesday show right after the Let's Talk iPhone event. So be there, or Georgia will annihilate your planet.
And for all of our podcasts, including iPhone Live, iPad Live, Zen and Tech, Super Functional, Iterate with Seth Clifford, Android Central, Crackberry.com, and more, see mobilenations.com/shows. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us on iTunes and leave a rating. Helps people find us, and it makes us heart you.
Less than 3.
Less than 3. Thanks to the Tippy iPad Accessory Store for sponsoring our podcast. Buy everything that you can through there, because they've got some really awesome stuff that we will be taking a look at and reviewing in the weeks to come. And thanks everyone who showed up for the live chat.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody. See you on Tuesday.